Ndala, 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 ndala. Welcome, welcome. So today, the principle that we are going to be looking at, applying this week or this month or however long you need to apply it to really let it sink within yourself and really let it integrate your lifestyle and your way of being, is the principle of speaking words with good intent. So if you have already looked at the rest of the series and the previous principle we've discussed, some of you may find this aspect, speaking word with good intent, to be somewhat related or similar to speaking and acting with sincerity. So let me clarify it so you can see the distinction between the two. Speaking words with good intent mean that when you are speaking to somebody, providing advice or giving your opinion, that the intent that's behind what you're saying is one that is good, is one that is beneficial, is one that is helpful, is one that is useful, okay? On those lines, good intention, it has to be beneficial ultimately to the person you're speaking to, not just to yourself. This is different from speaking with sincerity, because if you see, speaking with sincerity would mean that if the words that the advice that you're giving are harsh, okay, because that's the way you feel, this is really actually how you feel, this principle will push you to balance it, meaning that speaking with sincerity does not mean you need to speak with ill intent toward others. Okay, you see, you can really be feeling angry towards somebody. It doesn't mean you have to express that to them. And this is one, maybe this is one aspect to understand about the principle of MAAT. They are not compartmentalized. It's not just you working on one principle at a time. You will see that by the time we finish the main 42 principles, they are all interlinked, intertwined. They are interdependent to one another. They are one that comes always to balance something else. It's never a free-for-all. There are not limitation, but there are clarification that you will see as you combine and apply all of them together. So even though you must speak with sincerity, this principle is telling you that sincerity must be with good intent. Okay, you're not saying things because you're angry to hurt somebody else because that's the way you feel. You're saying something, for example, that may be a little bit harsh, that may be a little bit hard for that person to hear because you want them to do well. Can you feel the difference? Can you see the difference between the two? That good intent comes to kind of push you to say not everything that you feel or think needs to be expressed and needs to be said. And so this good intent is going to push you also to watch out the way you're saying things. It's not because sometimes we do have to bear bad news even to people who we dearly, dearly love and we dearly appreciate. And it doesn't change the news that we have to bear and share with them. The good intent behind it is that we'll find ways to express that, to let them know that are filled with that good intent. Of course, that does not make you responsible for however they're going to take it, because sometimes bad news are bad news. At the end of the day, some people may not even think about the way you've given the news, but the news may be so bad or so harsh that they get into their feelings, or they get angry, or they attack the messenger instead of focusing on the message. And that's understandable. The only thing that you need to understand is that do not provoke it. So many times discussions about telling it like it is, for my perspective, what I've seen a lot of time is used to be able to be careless and irresponsible or uncompassionate toward others just because you feel a certain way. You can have a lot of truth within you. You can have a lot of truth that you want to express, but there's always a time, a place, and a way to do it. So this principle is kind of like giving you that boundary, giving you that direction in terms of how you're going to be using your expressive powers, if you'd like. So it's not that you're pretending that everything that you're going to say are going to be great and wonderful. We're not talking about that. we are talking about the intent. Why are you sharing this with this person? Okay, why? What is the need for expression and communication? That need needs to have a beneficial outcome, or it needs to aim for a beneficial outcome, and not in a malicious kind of way. So the reason why you're saying this is not to shock the person or shook the person or anything like that. You have to say it because it is something that that person maybe has asked you, and you saying it with the intent that whatever you're sharing with this person will be beneficial to them, as much as it may also be beneficial to you. But the focus is that behind your words, behind what you're saying and how you're saying it, there must be good intent. A way to look at, okay, what are good intent? When am I not having this good intent, and what it is? Okay, I've touched on this a little bit by saying that good intent means that the communication that you're having, the reason why you're having this communication is because it is going to be beneficial to the other person as well. Usually when we communicate, is intrinsically beneficial to us because it enables us to express ourselves on whatever else we're going to communicate about. Now, the requirement here is that it shouldn't just be beneficial to you. So when you say, well, I have the right to express myself and to speak my truth, yes, you do. Yes, you do. But you can do that without talking to someone else. You can express yourself in your journal. You can express yourself on by doing your podcast or whatever else ways. But now every time you're interacting with somebody else, you have to take in consideration that other person. And all of the principle of MAAT comes into play in terms of how do we interact with one another, with each other. That's important. Which we are doing this in order to aim for harmony, in order to aim for relationships that are fulfilling, the relationships that are also realistic, but relationships that are not ill-rooted. We don't maliciously go and try to hurt other people. And we also take the time to look at what is it that we need to communicate. Is this something that can be very hurtful to this other person? Is it something that this person was maybe not even expecting? Is there a way for me to break this news or share this information with a lot of compassion? With words, by choosing carefully my words that will help this person understand better? Maybe sharing this news in a space, in certain circumstances that will ease the situation? Those are elements that you will look at and take in consideration. Like I've mentioned before, it is possible that in certain situations you are not able to choose the place or even choose your words carefully because of emotion or other factors, okay? So it's not an absolute, but it's the process that matters, that you have to take all of that in consideration when you're going through the process of telling somebody. So it requires you to always take a step back. You're not speaking impulsively. You're not speaking just because. You're not saying things just because. You have to take your time in preparing yourself. You have to take your time in being ready to communicate and ready to interact with someone else. And in doing that, speaking words with good intent is not a guarantee for anything, just like all of the other principles. You're not doing it for someone else out there somewhere. You first and foremost doing it for you, for yourself, because it's going to bring you clarity in terms of making sure that when you're speaking in a way that's going to be beneficial for that other person as well. So you won't have to twist and turn the next day when you said something harsh that just came to your mind, when you maybe acted in a harsh kind of way. This is a way to prevent those kind of situations, at least to reduce the number of those kind of situations, okay? So yes, speaking words with good intent requires work. It requires practice. Like all of the other principles, practice makes it better. So the only way you're going to get better at something is doing it over and over and over and over and over again. And at the end, it becomes second nature. Of course, there's always some bumps in the road. There's always situations that are unexpected or that push us a little bit out of our comfort zone, so that we may take a little bit more time in order to assess how we're going to express and communicate with other people within those situations. There's going to be also mistakes along the way, so don't start to be too hard on yourself. Okay, especially for those of you who are new to this journey. A lot of you have sent me messages that you're just discovering MAAT and you're just wanting to take this journey and apply this principle within your life. It's going to be hard at first because you're not used to it. You may even have a perception or a view of the world where everybody is harsh and hard. Then it's even more reason for you to fall on those principles, because if everyone is harsh and hard, they may not even know how to be a little bit more softer, a little bit more nice, simply. And sometimes just by being around somebody who's nicer, whether they appreciate it or not, they are exposed to something else. They are exposed to a different way of doing things. And so are you, especially those of you who are new. You may try these few days, and I've received your messages in terms of trying these few days and feeling exhausted because of the responses of the people around you. But again, I will say, speaking words with good intent does not mean that you need to speak all the time. This is another subject that I will have to address in terms of you don't have to speak all the time. This is not required of you. Sometimes it's even better for you to just observe and be quiet. Of course, when your opinion, your suggestion, when people are coming to you for advice, if you're mentoring people, if you're a teacher, if you have children under your responsibility, so forth and so on, there are instances that you will have to speak. And this is normal, and it's up to you to prepare yourself to speak and communicate in a way that has good intent behind it. Especially when you're speaking with children, your own children, the children around you, the children that come to you. It's very important to take that time and to choose your words carefully, to make sure that when you speak with a child, that good intention is placed in every of your words, in all of your communication, even when you're disciplining a child. That is very, very, very important. And so applying it is going to require some time, that's for sure. It's going to require also for you not to rush. As I mentioned, that you don't have to speak all the time on everything. That means even when somebody comes to you with a situation, it doesn't mean you need to speak on your feet right then, right there. Oftentimes, it's much more judicious to sleep on it, as we say. To take a step back and to say, I'll get back to you. Especially when you are discussing a topic that is very controversial, or a topic that makes you emotional, or a topic that makes you angry, that awakens some type of emotions that are within yourself. It's better for you to hold on, to sit with all of that, to let it simmer, to let it go. And once all of that will have cleared up, your mind will be a lot more clearer for you to choose your words carefully, to know exactly what you want to communicate, okay? And the way you want to communicate it. It sounds like common sense. It sounds like something that you say, well, I already knew this. And probably you did. And for you, that would be a reminder. Okay? But even for the things that we do know, sometimes we forget. Sometimes when we get angry, we're quick to respond. We're quick to have a mouth and say things that hurt other people. So this is kind of a reminder, if you'd like. Take this video as a reminder for those of you who are already practicing this and who are already really well versed into improving your communication skills and into looking into your emotions. Take it as a reminder that there's still room to improve. There's still those few times when things didn't go quite the way it could have went. There are still things that you can look at and say, okay, I can improve on that. Especially if you know that there are people that may put you in a emotional state. Okay, that may be an area you can work on. So it may be that your communication is very well grounded with everybody else, but there are few people that with them you're having a harder time. So this may be an opportunity for you to practice with them. And of course, always use your judgment. If this person is you having these issues because this person is really, really hard, and or even too hard for you to speak with and stuff like that, use your discernment and don't do it. Do it with somebody else, do it with a stranger, but continue to practice. Don't shy away from this kind of interaction. Even it doesn't have to be always with your voice. It can be when you're writing emails, when you're writing letters. Make sure that when you're communicating, there's a good intent behind it. And like I've mentioned before here, good intent is not the good and bad, or bad or evil, and good and evil, and then that is that there's a benefit behind it. That means you're not here sugarcoating things, you're not here hiding things, transforming things so that the person, so to mislead somebody else. This is what I used the example of a bad news. Sometimes there is something that's bad that needs to be communicated, and the good intent behind it comes and has to pull out through this this communication. So it's a little bit more delicate when it is a bad news, because if you don't take the time to carefully choose your words, to look at the circumstances, how you want to communicate it, it can go easily bad, and conflict can result from that. But the advantage of using MAAT is that you are still on the path of always doing your best and giving your best. And whether it is appreciated by other people or the person you're talking to, it's not of your own responsibility. You're only responsible for what you put out in the world, what you are willing to offer the world. And beloved, what you have to offer is beautiful enough if you put all of that, especially if you put it with your good intention behind the communication that you assert. So of course, if you are applying this principle and you have questions and or comments or suggestions for others, please leave them below the video so that everybody else can learn, and so somebody can answer, so that you can answer each other's questions or suggestions and so forth and so on. I thank you for joining me, and I will definitely see you on the next video.